Power Women podcast. For your career and your life, no matter what business you're in.
Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of the Northern Power Women podcast. I'm Sam Walker, here as ever to entertain and delight us is the one and only Simone Roche, MBE, our great leader. Hello.
Hello. I feel like I'm. It's like a sidekick, you know, like Batman and Robin. I feel like we're now superheroes, caped crusaders tackling the COVID-19.
And the funny thing is, I've not worn tights since about 1998, but there you go.
Indeed. Well, you won't do in Arizona.
This is true. I am currently wearing shorts. I don't want to rub it in. I know it's not very warm in England right now, but hey ho. We don't leave the house anyway, really. So we're both in the same boat. How's this week been for you?
Do you know what? It's been really quite busy, and I think in a good way. And for me, good is always about having conversations with people, because that's the oxygen, isn't it, into the way I think we're made. So I think it's good. It's almost regardless of size of organisation or regardless of what role individuals I'm speaking to, is everyone's got so many different sort of challenges. So we've had those conversations for years, haven't we, about having it all. Now it's almost a bit like, how are you putting one foot in front of the other? And what can you do? What can we do to help? Who's holding you up? So I think lots of different conversations for me. We're still looking at where you know, what the path we're going to trod and stuff. But you know what? It's still all about people for us.
It really is. I had a brilliant chat with Leslie McPherson from the Cooperative Bank, which is going to appear on a special episode of the podcast, actually, coming out later this week. And she is Director of Communication. So she's about communicating with customers, between the bank and the customers, but also about communicating from colleague to colleague. And what she and I were discussing is about the fact that everybody's situation is completely unique. You've got someone who's perhaps living on their own, so is challenged by the sense of isolation. You've got someone who's living with a larger family, perhaps a parent living with them, but also children and a spouse. They're completely challenged by the kind of overcrowding, overwhelming nature of it all. So we are living these different experiences, but we have this completely common experience in that we're all struggling in different ways, and again reaching out and communicating. And she talks brilliantly actually about how this is a fantastic opportunity to network now and to grow your business network, and even, it sounds crazy, to push your career forward, because people are open and responsive. And if you reach out on Twitter or LinkedIn, people are willing and and ready to sit down and give their time to you, because we all realise we are facing these really big challenges.
And I think that, I always think, is the generosity of spirit of the Northern Power Women and Northern Power Futures community. You know, for years I've had these every week. How can I get involved? What can I do? You know, I want to help someone, you know, and then you get people, I want to ask for help. So, but we're always overwhelmed with the people who want to help. And I've always really struggled with the customer service of that, of going back to people and trying to personally match someone with a need, etc. So one of the things we've been doing is building since last summer, actually, we've been scoping out what this platform, which is a bit like what I love to do, which is connecting people, but via a very simple connection hub. So we've been doing that over the last few weeks, which we were going to talk about at the awards. But that will come out. And I think that actually is just trying to keep that spirit together. And I love Leslie McPherson. She's so really honest and practical. And one of the conversations I had yesterday was another power lister, actually, Liz Tapner from Cellnet. And she's the chief exec there. And we've been in conversation for a while, but we had our first, if you like, face-to-face Microsoft Teams chat yesterday. And her first words were, you know what, I'm struggling because you know what? I'm a hugger. And, you know, and we've talked about hugging on previous podcasts. I know we have, but I think right now that seems to be something that people are missing. And I had a call with Fran, one of my team, who's furloughed earlier, and she's got her two little ones running around. And I'm like, you know, Esme, can you give your mummy a hug? You know, because you've got these women holding families up, holding businesses up. And I'm urging, not inappropriately, but if you can, just, and you're allowed to, in your family, give them a hug.
That is a really, really brilliant thing. Funnily enough, I was working on a project yesterday that was hardcore. And the moment I finally managed to submit to the client, I said to the rest of the team I was working with, I really wish we could all just have a hug. And they both sent me those little gifs of people hugging each other. And I thought that's the nearest we're going to get. But it was such a stressful time. Really interesting you talking about women kind of holding up families and that being our experience. Two things I want to share with you. Number one, yesterday, a really lovely man I used to work with at BBC Radio 5 Live. He's a studio producer there. And he tweeted, blimey, being at home with a toddler all day and trying to cook 3 square meals just makes me want to drink all day. And it was a funny thing and it was a little funny quip. But I thought, do you know what? That has been the reality of so many women for so many years. And it's strange. It's almost like a lot of men do stay at home with their children. Of course they do. And a lot of men are very much a hands-on parents. My husband is very much a hand-on dad. But I think historically it has more been women who've taken on the most of the childcare and the most of the domestic work, just, regardless of whether they've worked outside the home or not. And this week, actually, my husband was on a really high-ranking Zoom call because the whole world's on Zoom calls right now. Okay, yeah, right? And he was talking to his CEO and, some of the big board members of the company that he works for. One point during it, my daughter ran up and started to say, Daddy, in maths, blah, 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 blah. And he muted the call, gave her some attention, and she went off quite merrily. And at which point I heard them saying, Dave on the call, and he just went back. He went, oh, sorry, I just needed to step out because my daughter needed some help with some homework. And they all went, that's fine. And I had a bit of a moment, Simone, when I thought about the number of times and the effort that I have put in to separate my working life and my family life, because I've always felt quite triggered by someone going, oh, you're a mum, oh, you've got lots of childcare responsibilities, and almost seeing me as lesser. And I know that's something that I obviously felt, but it's been that kind of strange belief, I suppose, that so many women have had that we must be professional at work and not say that we're a mother and not say that we're vulnerable and not say that we're being pulled in 50 different directions. And if, I remember being on the radio and being offered a breakfast show, and the first thing they said was, how are your kids going to get to school? And I said, has anyone ever asked Terry Wogan that? Why? And so I've always really tried to say separately. I thought, actually, I feel quite empowered now that a lot of men are totally owning it from the fact they are at home and they have got children running up and down. And I think we can really learn from that, actually, and celebrate that.
I think there's an epiphany, isn't there, of this, where it's suddenly going, oh my gosh, actually, this is really challenging.
Yeah.
Because I think, and I think, we talked before, we've got to make the positive out of this massively challenging, scary, fretful place that we're in. We've got to find those small opportunities and those small wins. And I think if this is a way it's not about telling anyone anymore. It's about people having lived experiences that will make them learn and understand in a different way for the future, so that when we come not just out of it, but as we work through this.
Yeah.
So many organizations have fought for years about agile working and working from home. Now people, I think, can start to see the benefits of the multiple things that you can do and the blurring of those lines. But if it gives that understanding out of this, then that's got to be a brilliant thing, right?
Absolutely. And I think let's own the fact that as business women, we are juggling family and home life and work life all the time. And as I said in the past, I've always tried to separate it. When I'm at work, and I don't talk about my children I'm not talking about with you or with other Northern Power women. I'm talking about sometimes when I'm with a client, or when I was on air at the BBC, I'd be like, well, let's just be the professional Sam at work. But in fact, we need to celebrate more that we are bloody badass and we are juggling all these things all the time. And guess what? Yeah, I have got kids who, I've got a note on my door right now saying, don't come in. It's not an emergency if you're hungry. I'm recording. Go and ask Daddy. And they respect that and understand that. And I just thank the universe that my children aren't sort of 2 and 3, or I think I might be in a heap on the floor right now.
Do you know what? In the midst of all the different gifts and sharing on socials that there are in this social non-distancing on social media, there's a brilliant image of I'm working at the moment, I'm on a call or whatever, and underneath and going, but here are probably 3 of the answers. It's on the second shelf, it's in the wash, or it's at the back of the fridge. I thought every parent should have that banner up on their door somewhere. But this is about being authentic, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's about being authentic. We are who we are. We're many, many things. We're parents, we're sisters, we're brothers. We're lots of things, and we have to embrace that.
Absolutely. Now, look, something you and I really wanted to do, Simone, was to get some other voices on this podcast while we're in this sort of special lockdown season and talk about their own life lessons. Can you explain?
Yeah, I think this was really about, not just keeping the conversations going, but you talked about what Leslie say about this is about people developing their careers and their journeys. Because, our journeys and the way we go through life is about, not just our work, but everything we do outside it. So we've gone out asking for people's life lessons because we know we've got that generous bunch in our community out there. And so we've gone to ask some of our Northern Power people to answer a series of questions that they want to share with you. So the first one we're going to be talking or hearing from is Alex Cousins. She has been one of those women who has been a supporter, a sharer, a connector, a giver-backer, if that even makes any sense, which clearly it doesn't. And so I thought, and also Alex is on our brand new Northern Power board. And I just thought it would be fantastic to hear what she had to say.
Hi, this is Alex Cousins. I'm Business Development Director for Capita. Tell us an important role model in your life. I would say both parents, mum and dad. My mum, very tenacious, tough, strong, resilient, had lots to put up with in her life and thrown at her, and she just gets on with it. And my dad, he's got such a strong work ethic. So between the two of them, they've instilled my can-do attitude. Always grateful for that. What's one piece of advice that has really struck with you? A former boss once said, I need to take people with me. He said, you're like a train driver and you can see the tracks ahead, but not everyone can. They might be on the second or the third carriage. And if you want to be successful, you've got to slow down. You might think you're going fast, but it's not worth it unless you take people with you. We've all got to go on that journey together. Great piece of advice. What advice would I pass on to someone starting their career today? Think bigger, don't limit your ambition. What would you tell the 25-year-old about work-life balance? Well, it is hard being a mum, a daughter, a wife, etc. But it is possible, and you can have it all, but you just don't have it all of the time. So try and do as much as you can early on in your career, but don't leave two things late if you're going to want to start a family, because family matters. Tell us about a time you have had to be resilient. Well, what about now? My goodness. We're all juggling work, homeschool and co-working with the children and the partner, trying to keep calm, looking after yourself, looking after your parents, looking after your neighbours, eating well, sleeping well, job and money, worries, etc. So just don't think too deeply. Think of one day at a time and just get on with things.
I love that. Brilliant, brilliant life lessons from Alex Cousins there. And we want to hear from you, don't we, Simone?
Absolutely. I love the honesty. So just be yourself. Get in touch. podcast@northernpowerwomen.com. There's 12 questions that you can share your life lessons across because we know they're going to add value out there. And we want some of your quirky responses as well, too, because that's what we're like.
So 12 questions. You can pick 5 that resonate with you. It'll only take you a couple of minutes. And as Simone said, it's going to start a conversation and really help you connect with other people at a time when it's kind of tricky to be connected in person, definitely. And
Sam, it's on audio, so you can do it in your pajamas.
I'm currently wearing pajamas as I speak to you. I know I'm fibbing. I've already told you I'm in shorts. I can't fib that one.
Brilliant. Another brilliant woman that I've spoken to this week is Sarah Waddington. One of our power list runs an agency over in the Northeast. And obviously, as a small business owner, she's obviously looking at where her business is. But no, she's busy dealing with all of that. But not only that, but she's leading on the Northeast COVID-19 Economic Response Group, because why wouldn't she? And so they're building a whole response to everything that's going on. So whether it be around ventilator challenge, whether it be around food, whether it be about the economy, she's driving that. So I love hearing what comes out of people, stepping totally out of their comfort zones and getting involved and engaging and really taking responsibility. And I think this is what we do well across our regions, is we have a passion for and we want to drive what is good and the change to make better happen.
I mean, this is what's brilliant about Sarah, is that she has seen a challenge and she's risen to it. And she's now reaching out to her network and her community because, she's got a podcast called My Friends in the North. And full disclosure, I produce it. It's a great podcast. She has conversations with thought leaders across the Northeast. And she's gone to one of her clients, the local LEP, and she said, look, you've got this group, let's shout about it and connect people and help people at a time they're feeling really challenged. So instead of just seeing issues, she's seen a solution. So My Friends in the North is the podcast. The next 5 episodes are about this brilliant COVID-19 economic response group. So it's a really great thing to just get some ideas and some tips and just connect with other people around you.
But let's face it, we've not been this way before. Some people may have said we're in unprecedented times. So I think, what other regions and what other cities can learn from this and vice versa, I think is just so key to how we get through this together.
So we would love to hear from you. What are you doing? How are you finding these crazy times? How are you connecting with your team or your network or people outside your network? Have you made new connections like Sarah's doing with the podcast? How have you risen to the challenges around you? We know that Northern Power Women, you have the most incredible brain. So get in touch and let us know what you have done, please. We'd love to hear your stories. Your daft ones as well, if you've managed to juggle breastfeeding a baby whilst negotiating a contract. We'd love to hear from that as well. So podcast at northernpowerwomen.com is where you can get in touch.
And also, just a quick PS, your guilty pleasures too. Maybe be watching Joe Wicks. It may be Emma, one of our team as well, eating pot noodle sandwiches. I caught her today.
Yeah, that's crossed a line for me. Thank you so much, Simone. Brilliant as ever to talk to you. And guess what? There will be a new Northern Power Women podcast this time next week. We're nothing without you. So do get in touch, please. Podcast at northernpowerwomen.com.
Thank you.